Everyone. Happy Saturday post Christmas. I hope everybody got what they wanted for Christmas this year. Welcome to Take a Look. I am Dr. Quinyon N. Scott, and I have the pleasure of being with
Christina Cook, Washington Post Teacher of the Year.
Yes, Washington Post Teacher of the Year. High five from across the miles today. We do have a disclaimer. We just want you to know that we do not represent the organizations that we work for, or do we represent the institutions that we attended. However, we are here sharing our values, our beliefs as to what we think, and our primary goal is just to help you take a look at serious issues as we tackle them together in public education. We look forward to you joining us. Why don't you take a moment to like, share, call a friend, get your cup and join us so that you know, as we know, because it's going to get good. Now, Cook always got something spicy. But before she gets started today, I do want to just say that I am so proud of her. And I just want to honor her this morning. So I'll let her give you the good tea about her t-shirt. But over the last 4 or 5 years, I've had an opportunity to get to know Cook. And during that time, she's always highlighted being an entrepreneur, doing it for yourself, making your own way, creating a legacy. And all of her words have recently come to fruition with her oldest son. And so I just want her to have an opportunity to use our platform to share what's going on. And you can join the family.
Awesome. Well, first, Dr. Scott, thank you so much for that incredible promotion, but also like voting with your feet. You didn't hesitate to go ahead and support the Jack family and got your 10% discount. So we thank you so much for not only visiting the website, but subscribing and really being a part of what we're doing. So for that, thank you, right? Like people can support you in lots of ways. They can refer a friend, they can actually do it themselves, but from day one, you've been A1 since day one with whatever it is. You have been there cheering us on. And so for that, I'm eternally grateful. And to our Facebook fans, like to have a friend like Dr. Scott who goes from being a friend to a sister is priceless. So grab you some people like that. You can't have her because she's mine, but get you a friend like her because you're going to need it. So as Dr. Scott said, super excited. My 14-year-old son is an artist. He loves to draw, and he decided to take a chance on himself. And I supported him in doing that. He launched his own apparel company called Jack Design, which stands for Just Everyday Creativity. Please go check him out on Instagram at JEC Design. And you can also go to his website, www.justeverydaycreativity.com. And we are not only an apparel company, but Jack Design is an attitude, it's an attribute, and we're encouraging everybody to take action as he's created a lifestyle brand. And what he firmly believes is that creativity is the highest form of intelligence. And so what he's doing with his brand is clashing creativity with conformity. So we'll take something that you love, we'll mix it up a bit, and then we'll make it something new. So Dr. Scott, again, thank you so much for that plug. Check us out at Jack Design. You'll be glad that you did. And I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a few questions because I think that there are lots of parents who took this opportunity to bring ideas to fruition for their children. And there are lots of parents who are just struggling, like, how do you go from an idea to an actual implementation? And so can you talk a little bit about okay, there are millions of children that love art, right? And so how do you go from loving of art to creating an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, everything starts with a plan. And so we talked about it for actually years now. So typically people only see the manifestation of the idea, but never the behind the scenes, the late nights, the tears, the back to the drawing board. So we actually started Jack back in 2018, just as an idea. Actually, it was inspired by a former student of ours who we wanted to do something nice for and give him a t-shirt. And so John knew that this particular student liked basketball. And so John literally drew a basketball with a crown on it, and called this student King. And at the end of the t-shirt, John wrote his initials. And he said, it's a Jack design. And so we didn't really, like think a lot about it. I just thought, okay, he knows how to draw. It's cool. But we realized in that moment, right? It was that defining moment that we were on to something like bigger than ourselves. And so as a 14-year-old African-American boy, right, his mission is to inspire other boys, other kids, other adults to be who they were destined and designed to be. And so, that was the start, right? And then we worked on one other project where he made a design with some shapes. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like he's on to something. And so, sometimes you have, you call it like a moment, something speaks to you, your conscious, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, you've got to move when you have that energy to do it. So you know how we'll second guess something and then say, oh, I'll just do it later. If you put it off, you will not have the same energy or gifting you had in the moment that you felt you needed to move. And so for us, I wanted to continue to be a good example of him, of like not talking a good game, but actually getting out and putting in the work. And so what we did, we came together with a spreadsheet and we just mapped out everything that needed to happen to launch not just a t-shirt company, but a brand. And that's what this is, because not only does John design t-shirts, he also designs, and as we call it, he jacks furniture and he makes artwork and things like that. So we have like a movement going on that I'm super excited about. And I want to add one other thing, Scott. I know you remember this. At the start of every school year, teachers come and decorate their classrooms. Well, my first Jack design project outside of a t-shirt was my son taking duct tape to a table in my room. And it got, remember that, Scott? It got so many compliments. And at the time he was like 11 or 12 years old, and he just took the duct tape and did this creative thing. And so parents, if your kids have this thing and go for it. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have to fix it and go back to the drawing board. So the key is just don't be afraid to get started. The plan that got us started, Dr. Scott, is not the same plan we're operating in now, because we have orders. And so for us, we're a lifestyle brand, but we also want to make sure we're giving all of our customers good customer service and great quality. And if you don't mind, can you speak about the customer service you already got from Little John when you ordered?
Yeah, for sure. So I ordered the shirt. Soon as I ordered it, like within 5 minutes, he called me. He said, thank you. And he shared with me his Instagram his Instagram site. He also shared how he is, who his target audience is for his shirts. And so, he thanked me not just one time, but really multiple times throughout the conversation. And I just want to say like what that really means. So one of my biggest pet peeves, like true pet peeves, is that, and not necessarily when you purchase things, right? Because you don't even think like purchasing is a thing, and so people should say thank you. So that's not it. It's like when you go out of your way, so like sending a gift. I'm really big with sending cards, and in return, people don't acknowledge that they received the gift or that they got the cards. This really, I'll give you a quick example. So I have 3 nieces. One niece, they had birthdays over the summer, like stair steps in Pittsburgh. So I'm in Pittsburgh. And they were like signature birthdays. So one was turning 13, 2 were turning 16. And so, I give them all 3 of them are there at the 16-year-old birthday party. And so I give the 13 their card, the 16 their card, the other 16 their card. So the one 16-year-old is like, oh my God, thank you, Aunt Quignon. I really appreciate it. The 13 and the other 16-year-old the 13-year-old's like, thanks, giving me like, thanks. Okay. The other 16-year-old's looking at me like, you should have gave me a card, right? And so the 16-year-old is looking at me like, you should have gave me the card. because of my relationship with her mom, and just kind of like who she is, I have gifted her a lot of things over the years, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like even like, you know, I love to go to Chicago to buy jewelry. I've been in Chicago, have called her up, like, do you like these things?
Yeah.
Have brought back like 5 things for her, and everybody else has gotten like 1 thing.
Mhm.
And I realized in that moment that like how unappreciative she is.
Wow.
And it really, I think it bothered me so much because the other niece was like, oh, thank you so much. And she's like captain of the cheerleading squad. She's 4.0 student. And so definitely very popular. So she could have this arrogance, but you talk about sweet as pie. Like shout out to Niecy Greer because she's done a phenomenal job with her child. And I was just looking at like, okay, this is just a bit much when people go out of their way and there's this lack of appreciation.
Yeah.
And so I wrap all that up to say that people don't have to be kind. And so I truly appreciate the effort and the training that you're providing for John, for him to extend kindness, because definitely you can get more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. People appreciate the kindness, you know, people appreciate getting their packaging on time. And even if it's late, which is fine, things happen, people appreciate like, oh, I was able to connect. Like you were like, hey, did you get your email for Christmas? No, I wasn't checking no emails on Christmas. But like, that's nice that you would even consider your customers to send them an email.
Yeah.
All of these things are marketing strategies that, of course, we know we fall into them. Another example. So I love this store, Eloquy.
Yes.
Now, Eloquy has like a few standing stores across the country, but primarily they do things online. And I've been a customer maybe like the last 4 or 5 years. And I was like, okay, we're in a pandemic. I'm not buying any clothes. But Eloquy makes it so hard. You know why? Because they text me every day, Cook.
Wow.
Every day I get a text from Eloquy. And it's dumb stuff like, oh, we got clearance. Well, y'all been having clearance since Black Friday. Why do I look? Sometimes I can, you know, I scroll past like, oh, it's the same text. But other days I'll be like, oh, let me see what they got. See if they got other things off of clearance.
Yes.
Cook, in the last 3 weeks, I've ordered 3 boxes of clothes from Eloquy. You know why? Because the bombarding of emails, the number of texts, and I'm like thinking it's a deal. Now, truly, it's really not a deal, right? That's why I'm like, I need to just unsubscribe to them. But in your mind, it's like, oh, it's a deal. But not only that, I know I'm going to get my clothes within a week.
Yes.
They're always here, and it's great quality.
Yeah.
So why have I ordered 5 gowns? I don't know, right? I told Rob, I hope all your friends get engaged for Christmas. So we invited to the wedding so I can wear my good dress. He said that might be far away. I don't care. Like we need to go to some weddings so I can wear my good garments. But the bottom line is that it's this attraction. People want to feel like they're valued. People want to feel like you appreciate them. And so these idea of like common manners, thank you, you know, I appreciate you. And it doesn't have to be a lot, right? It's 2 words. And you can call, you can text, you can send an email, but you know, going back to, well, let's see, we're like 15 minutes in. So we might as well keep this conversation going. We'll hit you with data next week, right? And so, but part of it is we've lacked teaching our children basic common things.
I agree with you on that.
And this idea of like, thank you, or like, I get people have chips on their shoulder, but if people do something for you, like this idea of, like, I don't really care, so what? Or like, I don't like that. Like, there has to be something that happens between parent and child where there's this corrective behavior, because your children are going to miss out if they don't have manners. Manners get you much further in life. than if you do have manners. And I'll just toss it back to you.
And I'll say, I appreciate everything you just said, Scott. It's just making me think about how this whole like way of being started for them. It started when they were younger. Now they're still, you know, I have a preteen and some, you know, adolescent kids, but when they were babies, I made a commitment that whatever I felt I lacked as a kid, and I didn't lack a lot, but whatever I felt like I could have enriched my life more, I was going to do it for them. So I always think about this, and this is partly because, you know, both of us are teachers. We always begin with the end in mind. So whatever you start with someone, you're going to have to finish the same way you started. And so you got to be thinking, how do I really want this to end for them? So for me, I'm just thinking about how much money I've wasted on things that were insignificant, but I wanted my kid to have it, right? Give you an example, like name brand stuff at like 1 month old. You don't even know what that is. So there's no appreciation. It was just, I wanted you to have it because it made me feel good. And so Scott, honestly, I'm being extremely—
Hey, so you can preach now. You can preach.
So I'm being transparent with you on here, and I appreciate this conversation today. And I had to realize, where did I want this to end for them, where they value things that weren't necessarily expensive, but they also saw the value in money, right? And so we think, you know, money is scarce or money is hard to come by. That's not true. There is an abundance of wealth on this earth for you, right? And so for me with the kids, let me get back to the kids. What I started to do was this, because I heard all my friends complaining. They thought their kids were ungrateful. Like, to your point, I got them something they felt owed. So we switched from me just buying to, when you wanted something, you had to give up something. So if you wanted a new pair of shoes, and I don't mean, I'm talking past basic necessities, Scott. I'm talking about, you want a pair of Jordans, well, which pair of shoes are you going to give me in exchange for me to get you those Jordans? And what would happen, the things they would give me, I would then give to someone else in need. You know, whether we took it to Goodwill or we literally gave it to someone who needed. And what started to happen, the kids started to weigh, do I really need that versus do I want it? And I think there's value in that, teaching kids early their needs versus their wants, so that we can start to teach them how to delay some of that instant gratification that's really haunting America. It's haunting people, right? Like, we're still in the Christmas season and folks are going into debt to buy presents for people that they really don't even care about that much anyway, right? Or to impress people. And then in January, we're crying poor mouth because you overspent your budget. And so to eradicate some of that, I'm not saying this is the only way, this has just been the Cook way, we start to think about value of things, right? We start to think about, hey, if I want something, let me just plan for it. So that way, when I buy it, I don't have to put it on credit. I don't have to lay away it. And I'm not trying to be shady or offend anyone on here, but just think about what those mean, right? It's like, if you can't afford to, I heard it once said, if you can't afford to buy it twice, then you can't afford it. And so we have to start teaching our kids young how to do better with their money. So by the time they're 18, 19, 20, you notice I didn't say 20, 30, 40. By the time they're 18, 19, 20 years old, they're in a better financial place to get their start. Most of us, and Scott, you know, we both can attest to this. We got the student loan mafia on our back, right? Because we just, you know, they can't find men for child support, honey, but they can find you for them student loans. But you have people just in over their head in debt, and that was their start. And so we can kind of shift the narrative around, think differently about not just our money, but how we do things will be better. So for me, I've taught my kids very early on, people don't owe you anything. If somebody does something for you, it's because they wanted to. And if somebody buys from you, it's because they believed in you. People do business with people they know, they love or like, and they trust. And you hope that you're all three for someone, but people do not have to spend their money with you. And when they do it, Dr. Scott, we value that so much that we want our customer service to be just as impeccable as our products are. And so again, we thank you. Like, I thank everyone who has supported so far the Jack Design brand, because it means so much to a 14-year-old African-American boy living through the now modern day civil rights movement of Black Lives Matter. You know, he's on to something big. And here's the next part, right? The service piece. So I'm like, okay, you create your brand, people are rocking your brand. Now, how do we get back to the community? And so he and I are going to do some research together on what charity we can support so that a portion of the proceeds or, go to this other organization. So now he's connected to the outer community and not just himself. So with that, Scott, I'm going to pass it back on to you.
Yeah, well, this is a great time. Let me do Goodlow Project. So every single year we
absolutely
purchase toys. It's varied. Prior to last year, we've always partnered with an organization and provided toys for either women who were unable to provide toys for themselves, or for their families, and or men who were just out of incarceration, and they also in some cases had never even been able to purchase toys for their families. But last year we stepped out. We did the Goodlow Project, which was we had adopted a kindergarten classroom. And through that kindergarten classroom, we adopted 3 kindergarten classrooms. It was a really cool, fun activity. Each student got a gift. We went into, of course, I'm in Baltimore, so we went to East Baltimore, which is our dilapidated communities. That has a brand new school, though. But interesting enough, the children that still go to that school are from the community. And so, so I wasn't going to say this, but speaking of ungrateful, so what we did was our former students, I had them wrap the gifts. So the Goodlow Project sponsored the gifts, sponsored the toys. Our students wrapped the gifts, and then our students became elves and took those gifts to the school with me. It was a really, really good time. And so we did this thing on account of, I read them a story on account of 3, everybody got to unwrap their gifts. And you had children that were crying because it was oh my God, I got the gift I wanted. They were screaming, they were yelling. You had kids running around because they were so excited they got their gifts. And I mean, many of the gifts were just beautiful. And not just anything, but I mean real gifts. And then you had 3 girls. They were I want this. And then the one girl was crying. She was I want her gift. I don't want this gift. Now, we had people donating between money and gifts, buying things. So none of the gifts were the same.
Right.
So she's I don't want this gift. And so one of our former students, Justice, so shout out to Justice, she felt really bad for the little girl who was crying about not liking her gift. And she gave her she had $3. And they were going, which wasn't a lot of money, for lunch. And they were leaving to go get lunch afterwards. And she gave the little girl her $3. And I was so torn in the moment. So torn because Justice was so kind and gave this little girl her last, because Justice was I just want her to be happy. Dr. Scott, so what about me? I just want her to be happy. So I was oh, Justice, that's so nice. But this little girl needs to learn early. She needs to learn that when people are being kind to her, she needs to accept the kindness, kindergarten or not. So if she don't like the gift, oh well. Interesting enough, I did this for my nephew's classroom. For my nephew, so my nephew's in kindergarten, he was in kindergarten. And so I did it for all of for his other 2 kindergarten classes. So he was really excited, his aunt's dressed up and he was really grateful. But he was one of the other 3 students I don't want my gift.
Oh, wow.
So my husband was there and he's Uncle Rob, I want to trade gifts. Sir, are you serious?
Right.
And so it really made me realize sometimes the damage that we do and we do to our own kids. So Rob gave him, he wanted a Paw Patrol sleeping bag versus whatever gift he randomly got. And so he ended up getting this Paw Patrol sleeping bag, but it was just how much of a disservice, right? Did we do for him? That his family shows up, my in-laws, his grandparents were there, so he's in his own world because his family shows up and gives 100 kids toys, right? His point of view. And then he's I don't want this gift, I want this other gift. And so it's this idea of when children act this way, at what age do we correct that behavior? So
Mhm.
at what age does that go from like, oh, he's just, a 5,
Right.
to like, he's an ungrateful monster? Because if
Yeah.
he would have did the same thing at 10, it's a
Yeah.
different reaction than at 5. And then by the time he gets John's age of 14, if you're still having this reaction because no one corrected his behavior, I'm not giving you nothing.
Right. And I think there's a piece of that, Scott, where, families have to also be held accountable that they may have created that monster because they believe that themselves, right? You know me at my core. You always say, Cook, you always root for the underdogs. At my core, I'm grateful for anything anyone gives me. I don't care what it is because that meant they thought about me. And so again, it's hard to give kids skills when you don't personally believe it yourself. It's kind of like, the person who owns the business, who's the entrepreneur versus the business professor who speaks theory, right? You need a mix of both, right? Someone who's out living it and doing it in order to really transfer that belief onto your kids. My kids have seen me show gratitude for the small things. And I mean, getting up in the morning, I'm like, whew, I took a breath. Thank you, Jesus, because there's someone who did not, and every time I tell you, Scott, every time I go to the store and I buy something, I swipe my card, I have a silent moment where I close my eyes before I walk out that store and I say, thank you, Jesus. Let me tell you why I'm saying thank you, Jesus. I'm saying thank you, Jesus, because I wasn't checking the price tag. I just swiped and I knew that there was money on there, but I'm just grateful to be in a place where I don't worry about that, because there was a time when I couldn't do all the things I'm able to do for my children now. And so I think for me, because I've been in that place, it's like I'm getting teary just thinking about it. When you've been in a place where you've had to maybe ask for help, or you felt you should have been further along, but life happens to you. When you come out of that space, you make a declaration that you will never go back there. That's one, but that you will help as many people as you can to not be in that space. I'm blessed and grateful, that I have, supportive family and friends, but I know and realize everyone does not. And so for me, gratitude is the start of everything great. It's the start of everything. Like, people covet what other people have. You want what this person has. Like, I never did. Remember, you and I were talking, and what did I say? I said, Scott, I want all my friends to have a luxury vehicle or to have whatever they want, because I don't want you to be jealous of mine. So it's like, I start with, God, thank you for what I have in this space, because it's what I can handle. So if I want my territory enlarged, I'm going to have to do what? Learn a new set of skills and become a different person, right? It's this idea of always evolving yourself to attract the things that you want. So many times we say we want things, but they're showing up in the opposite way of what we want because of our mindset.
Yeah.
So like, I live a spirit of gratitude. Like, when I get up, I'm just like, God, thank you. Like, I look around at what I have, I'm like, thank you, because I don't have to have it. And so I think when we're talking about raising our kids, we have to show them too. You ain't nothing really but a sophisticated homeless person. You feel me? Like, you have what you have. Go ahead, come off mute so I can hear you laugh.
That's too much. Sophisticated homeless person. Okay, but I'm going to receive that.
Hey, I'm just saying, like, you have what you have because of who I am. I tell my kids all the time, you live good because I want to live good. And because I live good, you are the benefactor of that living good. And so let me teach you, how to live good, but you got to be good to people first. You see what I'm saying? You got to do good, be thinking good, be positive, and then you can attract the things to yourself that you really want.
Yeah, I agree with so much of what you're saying. And I do believe the spirit of gratitude is so important. I definitely, just in full transparency, my lens of gratitude is like a little different. And I think that there's levels to gratitude, right? When I think about both you and my husband, y'all are very, very grateful for like small things. So I'll just give an example. Like, Rob got socks for Christmas. My mother sent him like a box of socks. He loves socks, but she sent him like long socks. I was like, oh, I'm taking them back. I'm gonna get me some other stuff, like, and he's like, I love my socks. Like he tried them on. He's like, I'm going to wear these socks. Sir, you don't have no long socks. Like, let this go. He's like, oh no, I'm going to wear these socks. Like there's this level of, and then like him talking to his friends, and she sent him like about 10 different gifts. I'm talking about the socks, but he had like, we were opening gifts like we were kids. And so it's like, I don't know. People don't have to be kind. Like even my mom, right? My mom does not have to be kind. She doesn't have to wrap every gift and make sure it's done. But for me, it's kind of like, I'm so used to it that my extension of gratitude is like, it's just what Darcel does, right?
Absolutely.
Like he makes sure we have it.
Yeah.
And seeing his gratitude makes me be reflective, like, be more grateful, because a person, mother, whoever, just doesn't have to do. When you're 40 plus and your mom sends you 20 plus gifts wrapped, and I'm talking about beautifully wrapped, not no gift bags,
right?
Bows, ribbon, the whole nine. It's just this level of like appreciation. I want to rewind though. One of the things when you were talking about your kids, it reminded me of my childhood. So I've always had like this affection towards expensive things. And I remember like when I started getting into like the Coach bags, the gold necklaces, gold earrings, stuff like that. I used to have to write paragraphs, like an essay, in some cases a 5-paragraph, in some cases pages, on like why I wanted this item. And that included having research on the items, which included background information, how the item was going to be beneficial to me. And so, I appreciated my parents doing that for me. Because it gave me two things, right? It helped me practice my writing, but it allowed me to decide, like, if you really want this,
right, exactly,
you're gonna work hard for it.
Yep.
If you don't want it, because there was a lot of things, I'm like, I'm not doing no essay. Oh, then you really don't want it.
That bad, absolutely, yeah.
But I can remember I wanted this Coach hobo bag. And I was like, how many pages I got to write? Like whatever I got to do, I'm going to do it. And so, and then, I grew up in an era where there was no internet. So when it came to research, the only research was encyclopedia. Well, there was no information on Coach bags on encyclopedia, but it was leather. So I had to go to Horn's department store and try to find out as much as I could about Coach, because that was the only way I was going to get the information. But I was willing to do whatever I could because I wanted to have that bag when we came back from Christmas break. And so, I definitely think that there are lots of ways to skin a cat for parents, for children to have this understanding of appreciation. But parents, I encourage you to do something. Like, it's so important that you set the example and the tone. Something else you said, Cook, that was so mindful of, like, you can't teach children what you don't believe.
That's correct.
So, it's so funny because going back to the conversation where you're like, I want all my friends to have. Well, to me, that's not realistic. What I tell you, all your friends not gonna have luxury cars because the Bible says the poor will be with us always. Right. So you may not have, your friends may have all luxury cars, but the reality of it is that there are going to be people that just don't have luxury vehicles.
Right.
And it's okay. Like, it's okay for the person to live differently, and everybody has their own desire for how you should live. I have a friend, he was telling me that he and his wife are considering leaving their home to going into an apartment. And I was like, oh wow, like what's going on? And he was like, I'm a horrible steward over my house. He's like, over the last 10 years, I've done nothing. I haven't repaired anything. I haven't fixed anything. I don't even have a desire to. And he was like, and when we lived in an apartment, it was all good because somebody else did it. And he said the mental stress that I haven't done it is starting to affect me.
Yeah.
And he was just like, it's not even that I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't care to do it. And so the easy way for me is just to move into a place where they'll do it for me because it's stressing me out. And so I remember saying consciously to myself, like, this isn't a time to be judgmental. This is a time to listen. Because initially I was like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
Like, how you gonna leave your good home that you've worked for just because you can't get nobody to fix nothing? Child, if you don't call handy helper and get them to come in, that's instantly what I was thinking. But then I thought about there's so many stressors that people endure, and those stressors trigger other things.
Yeah.
And so you really just you can't, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't dive into what was truly going on. What I can dive into is that if you've come to the agreement that living in an apartment is going to be more advantageous for your health than living in a home, then you got to move to an apartment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it doesn't really matter what people think, because he's like, everybody talking about the American dream and having a home, and it's like it's a big deal, but that's not what I want. I would rather have a place where if something breaks, I can call them, they'll come fix it. I have different options. So he was talking about like a pool, a rec place. And of course, there are home communities where you have that. I mean, you know, they're so sophisticated now. There's communities that even have restaurants as a part of the community. But also, if you don't want that, it's okay. If you want to be in like the luxury where you have access to all of these other things and a home isn't that important to you, that's okay too.
It is.
I think we put so much stock into what other people think that it makes us not make decisions that are best for us.
Absolutely. That was powerful. Like, I'm in this moment, I was just thinking about how when you try on somebody else's size, it'll never fit. I love that. I'll say it again. When you try on someone else's size, it will never fit you because it wasn't designed for you. And so I think this idea of the American dream is what you create. And you have to decide, what does that look like for you and your family? Now, we have some models and some examples of the American dream, but the family structure, everything just looks different now than it did when that ideology was created. And so I think we do ourselves a disservice when we live to please other people. And as a recovering people pleaser, right, I realized that I have this one life to live, and I have to do what's going to make me happy and be beneficial to me, even if that means hurting others or maybe disappointing someone else, because at the end of the day, I'm going to have to live with those decisions. And so I just encourage everybody listening, like, before 2021 hits, right? And Scott shared this with you all last week with our Christmas message. Sit down and really decide what it is that you want for your life. How do you want it to be? Visualize what it is. It's like, you know, before we had the apparel printed, we saw it on another shirt. We felt on garments. We felt on cottons. We had an idea of what we wanted it to be before we even saw it manifest. And so it's like you kind of hear those things. You think, that doesn't really happen. When I tell you, if it isn't written, and I'm quoting my line sister, Shakira Hemphill, if it isn't written, it isn't real. When you write something down, you give your brain permission to go to work on it. I'm going to say that again. When you write it down, you give your brain permission to go to work on it. And you'll find once you start going to work on it, doors will open up for you to help you accomplish the thing that you said you wanted. And so I don't care what it is. If you want to become a good scuba diver or a pole dancer, I don't care what you want to achieve. Get started, but start with the written word, right? We know the power in words. And so, man, that was really deep. Like, you don't need to live up to someone else's ideology of who you're supposed to be. Just be, become the very best version of yourself each day. And guess what? That's enough. Because they're going to talk about you either way. So give them something to talk about.
I 100% agree with you. You just dropped, I feel like I don't have nothing to drop but this little lighter here. So I just feel like you just been dropping nuggets.
That's a good lighter. Come on, lighter.
All morning, my good candle lighter,
Period.
And dropping so many nuggets. And so I'll just say to our viewers, this is the last show of 2020. And so thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for those of you you that shared a comment, shared a like, shared. We appreciate all of the comments that were received, both publicly and privately, about the work that we're doing. We have planning are in the planning stages for 2021. We are excited about where Take a Look is going to go, as we too take our own advice and make sure that we have something so that we can continue to do the good work on behalf of public education. Have a happy and safe new year. Be mindful that we are still in a pandemic crisis. So please be mindful of where you go. If you decide to take alcoholic beverages, please do not drink and drive.
Right.
Until next Saturday, happy new year, and thanks for tuning in, and we will see you